For 2,000 years, the world has argued about one woman. Her face is on every museum wall. Her name is the most recognized in ancient history, and almost everything we believe about her ancestry is wrong. Her name is Cleopatra, and if you carry Mediterranean, North African, or Middle Eastern ancestry, this story belongs to you too. The official story ran like this. Cleopatra was Greek, a Macedonian queen ruling a foreign land. Her ancestors were generals who served under Alexander. She spoke 9 languages, including Egyptian, the first of her dynasty to bother learning the tongue of her own people. She ruled Egypt at the crossroads of 3 continents. Her court drew scholars, merchants, and diplomats from Greece, Rome, Nubia, Persia, and the Levant. But her bloodline, that was always murky. The Ptolemies kept records like a dynasty that had something to hide. The question of who Cleopatra really was, racially, genetically, ancestrally, became one of the most charged debates in the history of ancient studies, and it remains charged today. Because ancestry is never just history, it is identity, it is belonging. So let us follow the evidence. All of it. Where it leads is more interesting than any version of the story you have been told before. The Ptolemaic dynasty began in 305 BCE, when Ptolemy I, one of Alexander's Macedonian generals, declared himself pharaoh of Egypt. For the first 100 years, they married almost exclusively within their own Macedonian elite. The blood stayed Greek, but genetics does not respect royal decrees, and the Ptolemaic family tree was less clean than any official record admitted. By Cleopatra's generation, the 7th, the dynasty had been in Egypt for nearly 300 years. 3 centuries of proximity to the Nile Valley and all its people. We do not have Cleopatra's own DNA. We must be honest about that. No confirmed tomb has been excavated. No remains have been authenticated. What we do have is the next best thing, the skeleton of her sister, Arsinoe IV. And what that skeleton revealed changed the conversation entirely. Arsinoe was Cleopatra's full or half-sister. The historical record is genuinely ambiguous about the mother. That ambiguity is the key to everything. In 1929, a tomb was found in Ephesus, in what is now Turkey, containing a female skeleton of extraordinary quality. The tomb matched ancient accounts of where Arsinoe was buried after Mark Antony had her killed at Cleopatra's request on the steps of the Temple of Artemis. The skeleton was studied by the Austrian archaeologist Hilke Thür in 1999. Her findings detonated like a charge through the academic world. The skull showed cranial measurements consistent with sub-Saharan African ancestry, not Greek, not Macedonian, something the Ptolemaic family had never officially acknowledged. If this was Arsinoe, if Arsinoe and Cleopatra shared a mother, then Cleopatra's maternal line may have carried sub-Saharan African ancestry. That is a significant claim, and it requires significant evidence. Let us be careful here, because the story is more complex than any single headline admits. Hilke Thür's identification of the skeleton as Arsinoe has been disputed. The tomb's inscription was incomplete. The skeleton's age at death was revised upward by later analysts. But the skull morphology data has not been retracted. The cranial measurements remain in the published record. They are real. Their interpretation is what is debated. Now, we go to the broader population genetics picture, because even without Cleopatra's own bones, science has another path into her story. Ancient DNA research on Egyptian mummies has accelerated rapidly in the last decade. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology extracted DNA from 151 ancient Egyptian mummies. Their findings, published by Johannes Krause's team, showed that ancient Egyptians from the New Kingdom through the Ptolemaic era were genetically closest to ancient Near Eastern and Levantine populations. They carried surprisingly little sub-Saharan African ancestry, far less than modern Egyptians, who acquired more through later trans-Saharan trade routes. This matters for Cleopatra because it tells us about the genetic landscape her family inhabited, the pool from which any hidden ancestry would have come. The Ptolemies ruled a city that was the most cosmopolitan on Earth. Alexandria had a Jewish quarter, a Greek quarter, an Egyptian quarter, and a royal district that answered to no single culture. Royal concubines, foreign mothers, unrecorded marriages. In a dynasty that normalized sibling marriage to keep power concentrated, the bloodline was never as clean as the official genealogy suggested. Cleopatra's father, Ptolemy XII, was almost certainly the son of a concubine, not of the recognized queen. That concubine's identity is unrecorded. Her mother's identity is equally unknown. Ptolemy XII had an official wife, but Cleopatra's mother may not have been her. These are not conspiracy theories. They are the conclusions of mainstream Ptolemaic scholarship. Scholars like Duane Roller and Adrian Goldsworthy, working from Greek and Egyptian primary sources. The picture that emerges is of a woman who was genetically complex in ways the ancient world had no framework to describe, and the modern world has struggled to agree on. Let us go further back, because Cleopatra's story does not begin with her birth in 69 BCE. It begins 300 years earlier on the plains of Macedonia. The Macedonians themselves were a population at the crossroads. They were Greek-speaking but genetically distinct from the classical Athenians, closer to earlier Bronze Age Aegean populations. Research by Lazaridis and colleagues at Harvard's Department of Genetics confirmed that ancient Macedonians showed strong continuity with earlier Aegean and Anatolian farmers, not the steppe warriors who shaped northern European genetics. Alexander's empire then carried that Macedonian Aegean genetic signature east into Persia, Central Asia, and south into Egypt. His generals became the world's new royalty. Ptolemy landed in Egypt with an army and a Greek-speaking court. But Egypt was not empty. It was the oldest literate civilization on Earth, still fully alive. Within 2 generations, intermarriage at the lower levels of Ptolemaic society was widespread. The court held out longer, but it could not hold out forever. And then there is Nubia, the southern neighbor. The population that traded with, fought against, and occasionally ruled Egypt. Always there, always present, always recorded. The kingdom of Kush at its height, the 25th dynasty, had ruled all of Egypt. Black African pharaohs had sat on the throne that Cleopatra's ancestors later seized. Genetics does not forget those encounters. Each time 2 populations share a border for centuries, their genomes record it. So, here is where the evidence stands. Cleopatra's paternal line. Macedonian Greek with Near Eastern admixture accumulated over 3 centuries in Egypt. Her maternal line, genuinely unknown. Possibly also Ptolemaic. Possibly something else entirely. The hard truth is that we cannot close the question definitively without her DNA. Any scientist who tells you they can is overstating the evidence. But what we can say is this: the popular image of Cleopatra as a pale-skinned Greek woman almost certainly undersells her genetic complexity. And the image of her as primarily sub-Saharan African, while based on real skeletal evidence, is also more than the current science can definitively confirm. What the evidence compellingly supports is a woman of mixed Mediterranean heritage, Greek, Egyptian, Near Eastern, possibly with African roots through her maternal line. A woman whose body carried 300 years of Ptolemaic history, which is to say 300 years of Egypt meeting the Mediterranean world. Now let us turn to the question of what she looked like. Because appearance and ancestry are connected, though not in the simple way popular culture assumes. The Fayum portrait tradition, realistic painted faces placed over mummies in Roman-era Egypt, gives us actual Alexandrian faces, not idealizations, real people. What they show is exactly what population genetics predicts, an ancient Alexandrian population that was genetically diverse, tawny, olive, dark brown, and everything between. Cleopatra, in physical appearance, was almost certainly somewhere in that spectrum, and likely towards the warmer end of it, given 3 centuries of life on the Nile. Ancient sources, Roman ones, written by her enemies, described her as captivating, magnetic, intellectually commanding. Her appearance is almost never mentioned in those terms alone. Plutarch, writing a century after her death but drawing on earlier sources, said the charm of her presence was irresistible, that her voice was like a many-stringed instrument. She was not defined by her appearance to the people who met her. She was defined by her mind, by her languages, by the force of her political will. And that mind, multilingual, scientifically curious, politically ruthless, is itself a genetic story. Intelligence and language aptitude run in families. They run in populations. The Ptolemies built the Library of Alexandria. They funded scientific research as a matter of royal policy. Cleopatra was the product of a dynasty that treated knowledge as power. 3 centuries of that culture. Greek rationalism married to Egyptian mysticism, Levantine trade sophistication, and African astronomical knowledge, all flowing into one bloodline. Now we come to the turning point, the event that ended the Ptolemaic bloodline and scattered its genetic legacy across the ancient world. In 30 BCE, Octavian, soon to be Augustus, took Alexandria. Cleopatra died. Her son Caesarion, by Julius Caesar, was executed. The dynasty ended. But Cleopatra had other children. Her 3 children by Mark Antony, Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, and Ptolemy Philadelphus survived. Cleopatra Selene was taken to Rome, paraded in her father's triumph, and eventually married to King Juba II of Mauritania, in what is now Morocco and Algeria. Juba II was himself a fascinating genetic story. Numidian Berber royalty, educated in Rome, a scholar who wrote on the geography of Africa. Their son was Ptolemy of Mauritania. Their line carried Cleopatra's blood and all its complex mixture of Macedonian, Egyptian, Levantine, and possibly African ancestry into North African Berber royalty. And from North Africa, through the centuries of Roman rule, Arab conquest, and Berber migrations, that genetic heritage moved further and further into the modern world. Modern population genetics has mapped the Ptolemaic-era genetic signature across living Mediterranean and North African populations. It did not disappear, it dispersed. The Near Eastern and Levantine genetic components that dominated ancient Egyptian royal lineages are today found at highest frequency in Lebanese, Syrian, Israeli, and Egyptian populations. The Macedonian Aegean component is at its highest in Greek and Cypriot populations, with significant levels in southern Italian and Sicilian communities, descendants of the ancient Greek colonies. And the North African Berber component, the genetics of the world Cleopatra Selene married into, is present today across Morocco, Algeria, and in significant pockets of the Iberian Peninsula. If you carry North African ancestry, Berber, Amazigh, Tunisian, Libyan, Algerian, Moroccan, you are statistically likely to carry at least a trace of the genetic world that Cleopatra inhabited. If you carry Greek or Southern Italian ancestry, you carry the Macedonian Aegean substrate that formed the Ptolemaic dynasty's founding genetic core. And if you carry Levantine ancestry, Lebanese, Syrian, Palestinian, Egyptian, you carry the deep Near Eastern genetic layer that underlay the entire Ptolemaic world from before the Greeks arrived. This is what population genetics does that history alone cannot. It connects the living to the dead across 2,000 years, not metaphorically, chemically, in your actual cells. Every time a DNA testing company returns a result showing North African, Greek, Levantine, or Egyptian ancestry, they are reading a story that goes through the Ptolemaic world. Not through Cleopatra directly. We cannot trace a direct line, but through the same population pools she drew from, the same crossroads, the same ancient mix. Now, what about the African ancestry question, the part of this story that carries the most weight in contemporary debate? The evidence from Arsinoe's skull, if the identification holds, suggests that the unknown mother of Cleopatra's sibling may have had sub-Saharan African ancestry. That is a specific, limited claim. But it is not a small claim either. If Arsinoe and Cleopatra shared a mother and that mother had African ancestry, then Cleopatra herself carried African genetic heritage. The Kushite-Egyptian genetic connection was real and deep. The Max Planck study confirmed that ancient Egyptians showed some sub-Saharan African admixture even in the pre-Ptolemaic period. Modern Egyptians carry more sub-Saharan African ancestry than ancient Egyptians did. But even ancient Egyptians were not genetically isolated from Africa. They were African. The Nile was a corridor, not a wall. The question for Cleopatra is not whether African ancestry was present in her world. It was. The question is how much of it entered her specific family line, and through which ancestor. That question cannot be answered without her own genome, and her tomb has not been found. Kathleen Martinez has been excavating near the temple of Taposiris Magna for years, and has not yet found her. When her tomb is found, and the genetics community believes it will be, eventually, it will be one of the most significant ancient DNA extractions in history. Until then, we work with the evidence we have, and the evidence is more than enough to rewrite the simplified story. What survived of Cleopatra? Not her body, not her throne, not her dynasty, but something more durable than all of those things. The culture she embodied survived. The synthesis she represented, Greek and Egyptian, Roman and African, Near Eastern and Mediterranean, became the genetic and cultural foundation of the modern Middle East and North Africa. The Macedonian Greek genetic signature she carried, the Levantine Near Eastern ancestry she absorbed across 3 centuries, even the possibly African heritage of her maternal line. All of it survived, in living people, in the populations that grew from the same ancient ground she stood on. Her physical traits, the characteristic facial architecture of the Ptolemaic line, appear on the ancient coins. A strong nose, a prominent jaw, eyes that contemporary artists described as commanding. Those features appear today in Mediterranean, North African, and Levantine populations with striking frequency, not by coincidence, by continuity. And her languages, the 9 she reportedly commanded, reflect a cognitive capacity that ran in families of extraordinary learning across the ancient world. The multilingual cultures of Lebanon, Egypt, Morocco, and the wider Mediterranean world, people who grow up moving between Arabic, French, Greek, Berber, are the living cultural heirs of the world Cleopatra moved through. So here is what DNA, and the full weight of the historical and skeletal evidence, finally reveals about Cleopatra. She was not simply Greek. She was not simply African. She was the product of 300 years of the ancient world meeting itself. She was Macedonian Greek by patrilineal dynasty. She was Egyptian by culture, language, and 3 centuries of Nilotic life. She was possibly African by maternal descent. She was Near Eastern by the genetic substrate that underlay all of it. She was, in other words, exactly the kind of person the ancient Mediterranean produced, layered, multiple, belonging to no single category and to all of them at once. If you carry any of those ancestries, Greek, Egyptian, Levantine, North African, Berber, you carry a piece of that world, a fragment of that crossroads, a trace of what she was made of. The debate about Cleopatra's race will continue. It should continue, because it is a genuine scientific question with genuine stakes. But while it continues, the most important fact stands clear. Cleopatra was the last pharaoh of Egypt. Her bloodline ended with her dynasty, but the people she came from, the layered, ancient, enduring populations of the Mediterranean and the Nile, are still here, still carrying that story forward, including, very possibly, you.